My name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is going to be a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers. You've been warned. I'll be focusing primarily on macro level strategy. In particular, I'll be looking a lot at team compositions, their win conditions, how teams do, don't, and should pull them off. I'll also be looking at map movements, rotational play, objective control, as well as individual matchups, item choices, and the occasional individual play when it's paramount to the win or loss of a team. For this match, we have OMG against Fnatic, and this is going to be their first match in the group stages. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the picks and bans. From OMG's side, we see Rumble, Alistar, and Gragas. Gragas is targeted at SOAS. We see that Rumble and Rice have already been banned. So I'm not sure if this was necessarily a planned ban or more of a reactionary one. There's obviously been some good research done here. This leaves Fnatic with the final choice of, do we ban Maokai? It's probably highly likely that Fnatic were planning to draw out the Maokai first pick and then have SOAS counter with Gragas. Unfortunately, this is not what happens. The Gragas ban is very well targeted. Kind of throws Fnatic for a loop, messes up the whole ban phase because now you have the total top trifecta removed from the game. OMG end up getting the much better top laner in this trade, as well as getting their first pick, Zilean. So on OMG's side, we do see them picking up Zilean first. This is always a flex pick. You never know if it's going to go support or middle. You can assume more often than not it's going to go middle, because Zilean is a very weak support. Generally, you can tell what lane he's going to go in dependent upon the ADC and top laner choice, because it generally gives away a set strategy that the team's going to be looking for. In particular, seeing Aurelia, that lets you know that they want a strong top laner for some split push potential as well as mid-game power. And then if, say, OMG were to pick up Corki, you'd probably know that Zilean's going to be your support, using Corki for the wave clear, the survival under turrets. Not really the best choice for support with Corki, but not using Zilean and Corki for your mid lane and then bot lane, you're kind of losing out on some good strong split push potential that can come from your mid lane and say Zed or Yasuo, even Talon, Kassadin, champions like that. Anyways, Fnatic's next pickup is, or first pickup rather, is Thresh and Kha'Zix. With Lee Sin ban, they want to go ahead and grab Kha'Zix, getting one of the top two junglers. Thresh is a very generic pick, very strong in all of Worlds. Doesn't really give anything away. On OMG's side, we do see them picking up Aurelia and Evelynn. Evelynn will be in the jungle, of course. Works really well with Zilean, getting the bomb and the speed up for a big burst of surprise damage and easy flanks from Evelynn, so it's a pretty neat combo. The Aurelia pick is great because this gives OMG essentially the strongest top laner outside of the trifecta. This leaves Fnatic with choices like Lulu, as we see, or Kayle, both being weaker than Aurelia and having to be fit more into specific team compositions rather than being strong on their own. On Fnatic's side, we do see the Lulu pickup. We see Lucian. Lucian's very strong, goes well with Thresh. I'm not really fond of Lucian and Lulu. I feel that if you're going to end up picking Lulu, you really want Lulu with an ADC who has some very solid range, who can sort of hyper carry in the late game. The likes of Tristana, Kog'Maw, Caitlyn. You want these champions that are going to be able to carry and deal tons of damage from a decent amount of safety, forcing the other team to come into you rather than you going into the other team. That's when we see Lulu having success, is when she's used in these Death Ball Protect the ADC compositions. When she's used in these more aggressive compositions, at least from the top lane, she doesn't do so well. We don't. In every match in Worlds from the top lane, she essentially loses all of them, except for maybe one, and doesn't offer too much to the team she's built into. The reason for, unless she's built into the Death Ball ADC comp that TSM has run, and that ends up with an Orianna middle. But the final pick from Fnatic is Kassadin, and this pick is is okay. I might have rather have seen something else from Fnatic. This does fit into the sort of play that they can make, especially against a Zilean. But I would have really preferred to have seen something else. As we find out from Naj and White Shield later, Lulu is a great counter to Zilean as well, able to push and deny him really hard, keeping him at his tower and preventing him from being able to roam. Just something you want to do against Zileans. Anyways, on Kog'Maw, not on Kog'Maw's side, on OMG's side we see Kog'Maw and Nami being picked up. I really like Nami being played into Thresh Lucian in particular. I think she's very strong against this combination. Kog'Maw is a bit weaker, but because Nami is so strong against Lucian Thresh, it makes Kog'Maw better in this lane. He'll outscale Lucian. At level 6, Nami and Kog'Maw get a lot of solid potential against Lucian Thresh, especially when Kog'Maw picks up his Trinity Force. The lane really starts to turn in their favor, although by that time the lane is generally over. Nami allows Kog'Maw to be safe in the lane and to be able to get the farm he needs, even though he's going into a much weaker matchup against Lucian. The reason Nami is so strong in this matchup is her ability to defend. If Thresh ever gets a hook onto Kog'Maw, then Nami just looks to hit the bubble onto Lucian, especially if Lucian dashes to get in. It's pretty much a free bubble for Nami. Denies a lot of the stun duration of the hook as well as the slow of the flay, and then you get the heals and the speed ups as well as the slows onto the enemy team. She's very good at saving her ADC against a Thresh and against short range ADCs like Lucian. And since it's all trade damage, it's all in, since she is so good at that protection, it sort of nullifies a bit of the strength of the bully power of Lucian. Whereas, say, if Fnatic had Corki can much more easily get off his burst with his Q doing lots of damage. Even if he gets bubbled, the Gatling gun will go off. At level 6, then they can offer similar poke as well as much higher burst. So just, not necessarily that's a better matchup, it's just a slightly different one. And while we're in pauses, let me go ahead and get into team compositions. Talk about OMGs first, because I think Fnatic's team composition only has one specific way to work. Not necessarily because of their composition, but in relation to OMGs. So let's talk about OMGs. OMG's composition is very heavily mid-game focused, with reliance on Kog'Maw in the late game for that hyper carry status. We know that Zilean and Aurelia reach really big power spikes in the mid-game once they get their first Trinity Force and the first couple items for Zilean, or once he hits level 9 really, getting the max level on his bombs. That's when OMG's team will hit a really big stride, especially with the double Trinity Forces. When Aurelia gets Trinity Force and Kog'Maw gets a Trinity Force, that'll be the point in time when OMG's team is the strongest, and that'll be when Kassadin is reaching his lull, having built his Rod of Ages, needing to stack up, potentially getting a Tear of the Goddess as well. Sometimes Kassadins do that. Kha'Zix won't necessarily be very strong at that point. He'll still be starting to scale up. And while Lucian will be shoring up some of the weakness of Fnatic's team, his power is similar in comparison to Kog'Maw when Kog'Maw hits the Trinity Force. So OMG's team, around the first, second, third dragon, these are when they're going to have their biggest potential. OMG should be looking at these dragons to really take control of it, move the team in, and that's essentially going to be OMG's free gold. They should be able to take these dragons without any contention. If OMG try and fight, or sorry, if Fnatic try to fight, OMG should come out with the win. So that's where OMG need to look for one part of their win condition, getting that free dragon gold. Even before that, they need to come out even or ahead in their lanes. If OMG can come out even or ahead in their lanes, that gives them even more strength in this mid game and holds Fnatic down even longer. Evelynn is going to be a very big boon to this. She applies map-wide pressure even when she's not ganking. So Fnatic needs to take this into consideration. Evelynn also, since she can get into the ganks, needs to really look for these ganks. Get in, help her lanes get ahead. We'll see it work particularly well up top with Aurelia. Aurelia has a very easy, very strong way of setting up ganks. After using this Evelynn power to just simply create a gold advantage for her team, OMG needs to look to Dragon. Whenever Dragon isn't up, then they need to start looking at neutral objectives of Fnatic, especially Zilean, Aurelia, Eve will be a much stronger trio than Lulu, Kha'Zix, Kassadin. They can move into Fnatic's jungle, take it over with ward and vision control, look to steal red buffs, steal blue buffs. When there's no neutral objectives, when there's no Dragon up, then OMG can easily put pressure on turrets. Fnatic have subpar wave clear, having to rely on Lulu Glitterlance and Lucian Q. The Fnatic's team is also very short ranged. All of their skills are short ranged. This makes it really hard for them to defend at a turret, particularly against a Zilean who can speed in, get a bomb, and speed out. And a Kog'Maw who can poke down not only the champions with his ultimate, but with his W, he can poke down turrets from a safe distance. Having the three champions in Zilean, Kog'Maw, and Nami for the ranged, they can get in, all hit a tower, back up, whittle it down, force Fnatic to be stuck at this turret, prolonging the time it takes for Fnatic to generate the gold they need to get into the late game win. This is further made possible by Aurelia being a much stronger split pusher than Lulu. Aurelia, rather than being with the full team of OMG, can simply stay in a side lane and split push and pull Lulu away. This will significantly reduce the wave clear ability of Fnatic and allow OMG's team to get even more damage onto turrets as opposed to if Aurelia was there. So this is going to be OMG's strength. Survive the lanes, particularly in the bottom where they're going to be a little bit weaker at the start. Move into Evelynn ganks to generate lead for your team. Transition into the mid game with the power spikes. Take as many dragons as possible. Try and force Fnatic into fight. As soon as Trinity forces come into play, and maybe even a little bit before, start to pressure Fnatic's neutral objectives. When there are no neutral objectives to pressure or dragon, look to put pressure on the turrets using Kog'Maw's Siege and Poke ability to great effect, with Nami being able to disengage for the entire team with her ultimate. So this is OMG's win condition. Now, Fnatic's win condition is more in relation to OMG's, and I want to point something out here that's really going to bite Lulu in the butt. She goes back to base early, so do Lucian and Thresh. This is generally a good idea whenever you're fighting against an Evelynn. And as we see on Fnatic's duo side, Thresh picks up a very early pink ward as well as 2 vision wards. This is heavy into the vision control to fight against Evelynn, and we'll see this come into play well for Fnatic's bottom lane. They're well protected against Evelynn. We see that Kha'Zix has brought a pink as well. If you're ever fighting against an Evelynn, one of the best things you can do is take an early back, pick up a pink ward. This gives you a lot of safety. And here we do see Nami gets a little overzealous trying to protect her pink ward, and it was well planned out by Fnatic. The reason why Kha'Zix was in the area is because Fnatic had already planned on moving into OMG's jungle to get these wards. So Thresh and Kha'Zix were going to move in together to get these deep wards onto Evelyn's neutral camp so that they can keep track of her. So it wasn't that kill on Tsunami wasn't happenstance, it was actually planned and just something that ended up working out. But going back to Lulu up top, anytime you're playing against Evelynn, you should back when you can get like one extra Dorans plus a pink ward and some pots. It's really beneficial. It gives you a little bit more bully power in your lane, as well as giving you protection ability. However, unfortunately, Lulu backs and does not pick up a pink ward. There's really no reason to do this. If you're going to make an early back against an Evelynn, make sure you have the money for a pink ward. Otherwise, there's no point in that early back. That early back will lose you lane pressure, will lose you some CS, will delay you getting to your first item because you'll be picking up a second Dorans. And so, if you're not going to get that pink ward, don't bother backing. You might as well stay in the vulnerable position from the start. And here we see one reason why Aurelia is so good against Lulu, and it's in setting up these ganks. Dash to a creep, move in, get the long stun. Now your jungler has a very easy path in. And this is one of the 4 mistakes in this game that I think really come to bite Fnatic in the behind this match and why they lose. And it's on several mistakes on individual play. So that was the first one. Keep track of. I'll mention the other ones later as they happen. But going into Fnatic's win condition and their team composition, Fnatic's team composition is kind of all over the place. As mentioned before, Lulu really wants to be with a stronger ADC who has more range. Lulu wants the other team to go into her team rather than Lulu going into the enemy's team. So it's kind of a mismatch here in the ADC and top laner. You can have Lulu be a big bully in certain matchups, but generally right now she loses to all the top lane champions. So you have to not rely on Lulu, and rather rely on somebody else in your lane using Lulu as a support. She can kind of go well with Kha'Zix and with Kassadin. It's a little bit of a mismatch as well, as both Kha'Zix and Kassadin, they don't want to go in and tank. They want to go in, get the kill, get out. A lot of times Kassadin will rift walk in, flash out. Kha'Zix wants to leap in, get the reset, get out. They don't want to stay and take a lot of damage. So it's a bit of a mismatch. The other factor is, while you do have Lulu and Lucian who kind of have some mid-game power spikes, particularly Lulu at level 6 and 11 can really help shore up the weaknesses of a team and bring some solid mid-game power spike. Kha'Zix and Kassadin are very weak in the mid-game, so while they've shored up some weaknesses with Lucian Lulu, it doesn't really overcome how weak Kassadin essentially is in this mid-game, especially against, say, a Nami, because or Nami and Aurelia, if Kassadin leaps in, then you have very early lockup by Nami stun, Aurelia stun. Kassadin has to have his HP, he really needs the Rod of Ages, so that he can survive some of the CC of the enemy team, and then move into the damage once it ends, or getting out with his Rift Walk after it ends. Kassadin also because Fnatic are kind of missing out on some wave clear, it makes it harder for them to survive into the late game that Kassadin and Kha'Zix need to hit. And before getting to that, here's the problem with the second point of loss for OMG, or for Fnatic. Kha'Zix leaps in, and instead of flashing to dodge the bubble, instead of flashing as soon as he sees the Evelynn exclamation points above his head, he stays in, gets knocked up by Nami Bubble and then gets killed, giving a second kill over to Eve. Here is the third point of loss for Fnatic, I believe, is in this play by Kassadin in the middle. He goes in, tries to fight Zilean, and essentially loses the fight by a whole 500, 600 hit points. He didn't respect the Zilean ultimate, didn't respect the amount of damage that Zilean was going to pump out with his bombs, and the fact that Zilean had Ignite. And he just ended up losing, and there was really no reason for Kassadin to go in. He didn't have any AP, he's still running on Catalyst. There just was no good reason. Zilean has a much larger power spike in the mid game, especially right now with his ultimate, and Kassadin is very weak. So this is a bad point of play, particularly because Kassadin should be doing fine against Zilean. Fnatic's team composition to come into fruition is going to require Kassadin and Kha'Zix to scale up. And here's my fourth and final reason of loss for Fnatic. Once again, Kassadin goes in aggressive against Zilean. When he's in a 2v1 situation, Kha'Zix has already been forced to retreat, already super low on HP. Kassadin leaps into a 2v1 without having a flash for escape. In best case scenario, he kills Zilean. Worst case scenario, he kills nobody. In the best case scenario, he still dies to Evelynn. So it's essentially jumping into a lose-lose situation. It costs him his turret as well as his life. And the reason I say that these 4 points are why Fnatic lost is because it gives OMG the lead. And when you're on a team that lacks wave clear, especially on a team that needs to scale into the late game, then you run out of all your options when the other team gets ahead. This means the other team is able to bully you for the rest of the match. They can tower dive, they can move from one turret to the next and look for rotational mistakes. They have complete control of Dragon. The gold advantage for OMG will just continue to grow and grow because they are ahead and because they have the mid-game team who can bully, who can look for rotational mistakes, and with Kog'Maw can look to siege turrets. So Fnatic don't have any way to deal with it when OMG get ahead. So getting back into Fnatic's team composition, they're going to need to look for Kassadin and Kha'Zix to essentially carry this game. Lucian's going to get them through the mid game, and then Kassadin and Kha'Zix will scale up. Lulu will get her death cap, and well, in this game she goes Marilla Nomicon. She gets some good AP. She will give a good 1,000 to 1,500 HP and shields to her target. This will allow Kha'Zix and Kassadin to really survive in that team fight situation, as well as being able to provide the burst damage and DPS that they need. They have to be able to survive a long time in this fight, since nobody's really going to be building resistances. So, how does Fnatic get into this late game? Well, Kassadin has a pretty easy lane against Zilean. Neither one should be able to kill each other or do anything to each other. Both sides are fairly safe. Kassadin does not have the kill potential, as we've seen, onto Zilean. While Zilean has no way to really bully Kassadin out, the only time Zilean's going to kill Kassadin is when Kassadin goes in for the kill himself. And that's exactly what we saw. All Peke had to do on this Kassadin was sit back, protect his turret, and farm. He was in no way going to be able to control Zilean, unfortunately. So Zilean was going to be able to roam as much as he pleased, because he has much quicker, much better wave clear, double ball in the creep wave, and then leave. However, since Kassadin was under no threat from Zilean, this does mean that he can sit and scale up. He can draw this game out by keeping his turret alive. Whenever OMG go for the dragon, he can try and roam towards top, maybe take the turret up there, go for the middle turret, and look for trade opportunities with these dragons rather than trying to fight for them. Once Kassadin scales up, then he will be able to carry this game, but Fnatic are going to have to make it to the 30-minute mark or so with their team composition. And this could have been easily facilitated if Kassadin just hadn't been so aggressive, just simply sitting back, not trying to fight Zilean and waiting for other opportunities while he gets his CS. Like I said, he really does need to grab his Rod of Ages. He needs to scale up. He's at a very big power dip right now, and in the early game there was no reason he should have been fighting. If Fnatic were able to draw the game out through trading turrets for Dragon, through drawing out the laning phase as long as possible, through good warding to prevent this accelerated snowball that's going on right now, they could have potentially won simply due to stronger champions. The biggest worry would have been Kog'Maw, but a good Kassadin ult into Lulu ult probably would have been enough to deny him. Lucian could have got to the point where he could deal with Aurelia on his own. They had all the tools to win, but they flubbed their win condition in getting behind early. When you're having this really hyper-scaling team who has a big mid-game power dip, you have to respect it, especially when the other team is playing the mid-game. So this is essentially Fnatic's win condition, is they had to survive until about the 30-minute mark and just wait. They were weaker in almost every other situation. Potentially they could have tried to run the 2v1, even though they do have the stronger bot lane and Lulu can bully Aurelia. Lulu would have been able to CS better than Aurelia would have been able to in the 2v1. She also scales better without items, providing her support utility, whereas Aurelia has to have items. Since Lucian and Thresh were not going to be able to deny Kog'Maw because of the strength of Nami, this probably would have been a better option. Also would have made it much harder for Evelynn to gank, as you sort of control her by not opening up a lane to be vulnerable to a gank. So this is one good way to take care of Evelynn as well. One thing to note on items, Lucian ends up grabbing a Brutalizer after his pickaxe. I really feel that he should have been going towards that Infinity Edge instead of this Brutalizer, picking up that BF sword. Kog'Maw's about to get his Trinity Force, and this is going to actually make Kog'Maw much stronger than Lucian, even with similar gold values. It's just normally not the case. So at this point, the game is essentially over. Fnatic made the few mistakes that let OMG get into this strong point. They gave kills over to Evelynn, over to Zilean, two champions who are very strong. This also fits into the combination that Evelynn and Zilean have, putting a bomb onto Evelynn, speeding her up, having her run into Fnatic's team, throwing down her ultimate, and then the bomb explodes afterwards. You get a nice solid chunk of burst damage. So this strategy is also in OMG's back pocket. With the gold lead, and especially before the 20 minutes, Fnatic needed to wait till about 30 minutes before they were going to be able to fight on even footing, even without falling so far behind. The fact that they've fallen so far behind just makes things even worse. Whereas the power spike should maybe be something like a 60-40 difference at this point in time. Right now it's almost about an 80-20. OMG have essentially, if they play this match right, have secured themselves the win. It's in their hands to lose, not necessarily in Fnatic's hands to come back. As we see, as mentioned before, in their win condition, once they get ahead, bully the turrets, control Dragon, take the neutral objectives, get a lot of vision in the jungle. We see Aurelia drawing Lulu top, with Lulu being Fnatic's best wave clear at the moment. With Lulu top, this means that OMG can push other turrets very safely with this Kog'Maw. Fnatic, on the other hand, don't really have any options. If they leave Aurelia alone, she'll take a turret. If they 5-man defend, they can't really go into OMG's team. OMG can probably win the 4v5, unless Fnatic can get some very surprising damage onto Kog'Maw and kill him before Zilean can use his revive. I also don't like that Kha'Zix has not picked up his evolved Spike Rack. This is, in my opinion, a very big mistake. When your team needs the wave clear, you just have to accept that you want it. Maybe your playstyle likes the evolved Q better, or the evolved wings for the resets, but you have to play into what your team needs, and Fnatic's team needed wave clear so they can delay. And here we do see Fnatic. This illustrates how much stronger OMG are at this point. They try and go in and get some damage onto Kog'Maw, but OMG are still able to chase, burn flashes for none of their own, burn several summoners, and get the turret as well. OMG just have to continue this push going from turret to turret. There's no way Fnatic can stop them. We finally see the Rod of Ages coming onto Kassadin. That means it's going to take about till the 28-minute mark where it's stacked up, whereas he should have been picking this up around 12 or 13 minutes, and it been fully stacked by 25. So Fnatic are very, very behind. We still don't see a completed item on Lucian either. One thing we're going to notice from an item pickup from Kog'Maw is he's going to grab Quicksilver Sash very early. And this is a really good pickup, I feel. Kog'Maw, with his Trinity Force, is very strong. OMG's team is ahead. He can give himself safety to siege turrets rather than needing more damage. Getting that Quicksilver Sash early allows him to more freely poke the turrets. If Thresh gets a hook, he gets to get away, which is the only way that Fnatic can really come back, is if they get a hook onto Kog'Maw and blow him up before OMG can respond. The real problem with this is Fnatic have no burst, or no real solid burst right now. It's all very weak. The burst will come later on with items, but right now it's just not there. The Quicksilver Sash also, since it's magic resist, does very well against Lulu and against Kassadin. So it runs double duty. Right now, just to point out, it's really good that Aurelia is with the team, simply because Dragon is up. This is just a way for them to secure it, make sure Fnatic can't come in and fight for it. If Dragon were not up, then Aurelia should be top pushing, while the 4-man squad is on the bottom. This draws Lulu away, as stated before, who is the biggest factor in the wave clear of Fnatic. There's not too much else to say in this match in terms of macro level strategy. OMG just need to pick a turret and take it down. They can also get wards through the red side jungle of Fnatic, pressure the mid turret, and then rotate up to the top turret and take it down as a 5-man group. It should be pretty easy to take at that point, especially if you force Fnatic into their base. As soon as this big creep wave that you start on your side reaches it, move up to the top, take it out, go back to the middle. You can do the same thing on bottom, starting slow pushes, forcing Fnatic into their base, and then taking the objective. The other option for OMG is they could look for Baron, take over the top side jungle of Fnatic, remove all vision, get tons of wards, and then bait Baron when Fnatic come to check Baron, turn onto them rather than staying on Baron. This is another way to force it down. It's not necessary and it's a little bit risky, if OMG could take Baron, it would definitely guarantee them the win for sure, with the ability to push in and siege Fnatic to no end. But it's also a little dangerous if Fnatic were able to steal Baron or get a good fight there by some unlikely chance, then OMG lose out on a lot of their pressure. They have such a big gold lead right now and the power of the mid game that they don't need Baron and can win more safely without it. So this is smart play by them. I still feel that right now Aurelia should be up top instead of with the team. Using this split push power, drawing Lulu away from the defense. This is a way for OMG to secure more gold, more experience, and create better pressure than they are right now. So while OMG do this slow siege in for the win, let's talk about lane matchups. I already talked about a little bit about Kassadin and Zilean. I'll just reiterate it real quick. Is Kassadin can't stop Zilean. By picking Kassadin, you're essentially telling Zilean that he can go around the map and do whatever he wants. He has stronger fight potential early on, he has much faster move speed around the map, and his wave clear is much higher than Kassadin's. So in a sense, he's all around better than Kassadin in this early game. The flip side is that Kassadin is very well protected against Zilean. If Zilean tries to get a bomb onto Kassadin, Kassadin can simply use his Q on a creep or on Zilean himself to provide the magic damage shield to reduce Zilean's damage output. Normally going flash, this reduced damage from Zilean through the magic shield really lets Kassadin sustain in the lane, and he can focus on farming and getting to the point where he will later be strong. This is what Kassadin has to do. Since Zilean can't stop Kassadin from farming, Kassadin has to farm. Just sort of let his team know, his team has to realize that they need to be defensive, that Zilean is going to be roaming, and that wards are going to be extremely important to deny this Zilean roam. On the top side, Aurelia versus Lulu. As we've seen, Lulu can bully out Aurelia early on. The moment Aurelia hits level 6, gets that Phage or Sheen, she's able to go for all-in trades against Lulu. They go pretty even, but it does allow Aurelia to get pressure onto Lulu, back off, wait for the next Q into a minion, into the stun on Lulu. Especially since Aurelia runs Flask, she'll be able to heal up after her all-in at the level 6, 7, 8 mark. The other big benefit of Aurelia versus Lulu is that stun once again, how it sets up jungle ganks. So there's while Aurelia doesn't necessarily have the pressure against Lulu in the first couple levels, she really ramps up that pressure, especially when the jungler comes into play. So you kind of sacrifice a few CS early on, a little bit of bully ability to hit that big spike. Lulu, on the other hand, can look to get lots of glitter lances on Aurelia, try and whittle her down. It's going to be hard with the sustain of Aurelia's Heaton style and her Flask. Anytime Lulu is near the turret, it's probably a good idea for her to stay away, as a turret shot onto a ranged minion means Aurelia has a free dash to it, as well as then another dash to Lulu hiding behind the creep wave. This makes her very vulnerable to ganks, as we did see happen. So Lulu needs to respect this against Aurelia. Like I said, Lulu's not going to win the lane. She needs to prepare to help somebody else in the team fights. And here we see OMG, they're drawing out the match just a little bit. They're far enough ahead where they can start looking towards the 40-minute mark, being the spot where Fnatic come back, so they have a good 10-minute window to make something happen. And through vision control, just through a bad play, once again, by Lulu, we see OMG being able to find Fnatic in a rotational mistake. This gives them the opportunity to just extremely dive Fnatic. in the 5v4. And this is how OMG break through Fnatic space. Um, it's not particularly great play. It's great reactions by OMG to know that they can break into Fnatic space, but it wasn't so much Fnatic forcing their way into Fnatic, or it wasn't so much OMG forcing their way or creating an opportunity into Fnatic space. This time it was more of Fnatic messing up, of Lulu being out of position, and then giving OMG the opportunity for the 5v4. Like I said before, OMG should be focused on sieging. They should have Aurelia split pushing, or they should be looking for Baron. These are the ways in which OMG force opportunities rather than simply wait for them themselves. So that's essentially the game. I like the pickup of Morellonomicon and Deathcap by Lulu. These give some good solid power, with Morellonomicon being a little bit cheaper than Athene's, and Deathcap is generally my preferred Lulu second item, especially when you're behind. If you're ahead and you're doing tower pushing, then Lichbane is really strong. Allows you to get that extra 100, 200 damage on the turret every time. Speed in, use your shield, take a shot, back out. This helps a lot for siege compositions for teams that are ahead. When you're behind, you always want to pick up the Deathcap because you need those combat stats. You need that defensive ability rather than the offensive turret pushing. It also helps you with your defense in the wave clear when you have this extra AP. So this is a much better choice for Lulu, and well played. As mentioned before, we do see the Quicksilver Sash from Kog'Maw, and we see it going into effect right there. Just keeps them safe, prevents some of the double AP damage from Fnatic. I'm not a fan of Nami having finished her Frost Queen's claim. I think it would have been much better for her to just look straight towards the Mikhail's Crucible or the Locket of the Ion Solari. Both of these would have been better pickups than the Frost Queen's claim. But OMG are ahead, so no real faults. Kog'Maw did get his Quicksilver Sash, and he's the only one who needs to feel threatened by hooks from Fnatic. Zilean has extra HP in his Rod of Ages. He has some magic resist in his Athenes, as well as the extra shield from Seraphim's Embrace, so he's fairly well protected against burst. I want to make a note real quick. Look at OMG's inventory. We see 2 wards on everybody, and except for Kog'Maw and Nami, they both picked up pinks. What OMG can do with this is completely control the jungle of Fnatic with the mid inhibitor down. This gives a lot of pressure in the mid lane. OMG can simply walk into Fnatic's jungle together, litter it with wards, clear Baron with pinks, and now they have 2 options. They can push the top turret while the mid wave of super creeps push into Fnatic space, or they can bait out this Baron. Both are viable options. Both will see OMG getting closer and closer to the win. Because the mid inhibitor is open, there's going to be pressure put onto it no matter what. And so OMG can simply delay in their looking for rotational mistakes by Fnatic in their own jungle. Particularly right now, they should be heading towards Baron. I don't know why Kog'Maw's going for these wraiths. Yes, Aurelia's hurt, but she has teleport. OMG's team could be looking for Fnatic in these rotational mistakes, could be securing their vision control, just making it impossible for Fnatic to control Baron. And we do see a great teleport from a deep ward by Aurelia. Knocks out Kha'Zix. Eve gets in. There's a little bit more of a I'd say, luck play in this. It was a well-used teleport. It was a well-caught, a good catch by OMG. But without Kog'Maw there, they weren't able to finish off Kha'Zix. They could have already been pressuring Baron. Well, Eve's a little bit low, but I still feel that they could probably take this Baron right now. Fnatic are forced into their base by super creeps. Lucian and Thresh were forced to back. This was an opportunity for OMG to take Baron. Just have Eve sit back in the outskirts, ready for her smite rather than anything else. We do see Evelynn now picking up the Aegis. I like this a lot better than her picking up a Spectre's Cowl. Provides a lot more to her team overall. And it goes great against the double AP of Fnatic. As far as OMG's team goes, this isn't the first time that we've seen them fail at pressuring Baron. There's a couple matches where they really could have done it better. This is one of them. Their great ward coverage, though, keeping them throughout Fnatic's jungle, does allow them to find these catches. And now we're going to see OMG finally take the win. I feel they probably could have earned themselves the win 5 minutes ago, maybe a little bit earlier if they had really put on the pressure with the siege and with the Baron control. But they did play the game pretty methodically. They've kept up their gold lead. They continually expanded it. Every time they expanded it, it extends the window of opportunity. Like, if you wanted to see Fnatic hit a comeback, now you'd probably have to wait until the 45-minute mark rather than before, where at the start of the match, Fnatic's window of strength would have been coming into play around the 30-minute mark. This is why you have to be very careful when you have late game scaling compositions. It's very important that you don't put yourselves in bad positions. That every time you die, you make a bad play, you're extending the window that it takes you to get into the game. Go in accepting that you're going to lose stuff like Dragon and having a plan for when Dragon is up, what your team is going to do in response. So what could Fnatic have done in this game? I really think it was just a lot of individual misplays, as stated. Aside from just the 4 mentioned before, there was more that came after that, but those 4 were pretty essential simply because of how early they were. Gave over 2 kills to Evelynn, allowing her to kind of control the pace of the game. It also gave 2 kills to Zilean, who is very strong in the mid game, who with a couple kills can run around the map and control things. And we knew this was going to happen because Kassadin can't control Zilean. So the worst thing that Fnatic could have done is give him kills to make this even worse. That's simply what we saw happen. If those 4 mistakes weren't made by Fnatic, it's potentially possible that their gold disadvantage wouldn't have been so high. Since we see the game almost go into 40 minutes, they might have been able to make a comeback because the game would have been drawn out longer. Fnatic wouldn't have been so behind when that game gets drawn out that far. So while we did see a stomp by OMG, we didn't see absolute destruction. Absolute destruction would have been more OMG winning around the 28-30 minute mark, at a point where even if the game had gone even, that would have been when Fnatic was able to come back. Because we see the game being drawn out, there was the opportunity for Fnatic to come back. OMG did a good job. They properly kept extending the time it was going to take, so they were never in any real danger. And this is what happens when you have a mid-game team get ahead in the mid-game. They continually push back that timer of doom, giving them more and more opportunities to take the win in the game. So that's it. If take anything away from this, really respect your matchups. Know them. Zilean against Kassadin. Kassadin is never going to win that matchup early on. He really needs to just simply sit back, farms, and scale up. The rest of the team has to recognize this and be prepared with lots of wards. And essentially it. Fnatic didn't respect the power of Eve, didn't respect the power of Zillion. They really got punished for it. Once again, the notes for this match can be found below. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was very informative. Below is also a link to my portal page for all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis and notes. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.